It's that time. Your fix is here. College football is a year-round discussion with these two. Here's JC and Morgan. Mike Morgan of ESPN and JC Shurburtt of 24/7 Sports have you covered. Beginning right now.
Oh, it's been way too long. Believe me, we are here, and a Happy New Year installment of JC and Morgan. Welcome to installment number 225 all time if you're scoring at home, but the first of the new year. A lot has happened since we were on last, a little vacation, and my man JC got married. JC, congratulations to you. This is, what is that? Oh, you're pointing up the ring. I thought I thought you were calling a play. I thought you were audibling at the line of scrimmage. You were like Washington trying to figure out how to get out of a run play that was going to be stuffed for no yards. No, because seriously, right off the bat, want to say congrats. I know we've covered this on another show that you and I are a part of, but it was great to see you and your lovely bride and our producer, producer extraordinaire, as I like to say, the Mad Dog, Phil Molinax, all there, and some old time friends, and it was a good time to do it. There was no great college football games going on at the time. You picked a nice warm climate to do it down in South Florida, and everything went smoothly. So first off, congrats to you and a Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. I'm a happy man. This one is special. And I can't thank you enough, Mike, for helping facilitate that in a way. And
I just threw out a town. I just figured, why not?
It just was good to have all my close friends and colleagues there and some family and celebrate like we did. I'm sorry for the people that attended that got the flu. I was one of them. But I kind of thought that when that date's because I was like, man, because last year that was around the Gator Bowl, and I ended up getting sick and not being able to go to the Gator Bowl. So did my friend. And I was like, yeah, stuff kind of goes around that time of year. But we all made it through, and it was a fun time. And certainly, I feel good. I'm a happy man. I mean, my heart's full. So it's a good start to the rest of my life. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome, and I'll give the abridged version of what I said on the infamous party bus from Palm Beach to Jupiter or Jupiter to Palm Beach. I can't remember. Some things are a little bit hazy, but many of you that have been listening to us nationally and we've got listeners in the Pacific Northwest, we've got listeners in the Midwest, we've got Michigan fans that I'm sure are very happy today. We've got people in Texas, people from Florida to the Carolinas and everywhere in between. I don't know if we got anybody in Maine yet, but we're working on it. We got a listener in Moscow. We got all over the place. So I've known you for a long time, and a lot of our listeners from the state of South Carolina are familiar with you for a long time, so they know this. But for the rest of you that just hear us and you hear that kind of gruff voice and very I don't want to say rough around the edges, but you never know how people interpret you. I don't know how people interpret me when they listen to this. They might think I'm the biggest horse's ass on the planet. They might be right. I don't know. But what some of you that have never met JC or know him from any other forum is that he's got a huge heart, and that was on full display during that time. So I don't want to get too mushy in the opening segment in the A block, but I'll just say that and leave it at that. And with that, we'll get to business. First off, Happy New Year to everybody out there. And I had a lot of people, and I always take this as a compliment. We've missed you guys. When is the next one? And I'm like, it's coming. It's coming. We wanted to do it before the national championship game. Almost do like a preview. I've had a brutal schedule with NFL and college basketball, and between that and JC's wedding and JC getting the flu and my wife getting sick, and there's a lot of things at play. But we're here. We're with you, as you know by now, if you've been listening to us. Every week, there is no off-season for us, just like there's off-season in college football. So with all that being said, by the way, we got a snazzy new logo that you'll see. You don't see it on YouTube right now, but you'll see it when you listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Facebook, Twitter, what have you. You could also see the website, jcandmorgan.com. So let's get into this game, and then I want to get into some Harbaugh stuff. We'll get the JC5, we'll talk some SEC, and then we'll wrap it up, call it a show, and get you another one in a matter of days. JC, your initial take on the game last night?
It went about like I expected. I was kind of surprised Washington's defense kind of hunkered down a bit. You know, they call themselves the Dogs. I guess they hunkered down, those hairy dogs. You know, that doesn't sound right to talk about Washington that way, but they call themselves the Dogs, the Huskies, and I thought they played pretty inspired ball. I think at the end, you know, Michigan just was too powerful of a football team, Mike. And if you think about it, I'll take you guys back to 2019, 2020. LSU wins the national title, beats Clemson pretty good. That LSU defense was good. Was it great? No, certainly wasn't close to the 03 or 07 LSU defenses. Alabama the next year during the pandemic is a high-scoring machine that gave up points. And I think we thought maybe that's where the sport was headed. But the last 3 years, and really before 19 too, if you count the powerful Clemson teams on defense, and it's really been more about like who can run the ball and play defense, if you think about it. And it kind of coincided. Michigan kind of took the lead in that. Nothing against Georgia, but, you know, when they started just lining up and mashing Ohio State at the end of the year, they were on to something. And if you think about it, that's kind of who wins in college football, and that was the matchup. It was a high-flying offense against a team that's, you know, kind of a throwback. Great defense, great run game, heady quarterback. And I think that what happens to the offensive-oriented teams when they get in games like this is they're not physical enough to consistently stop the other team offensively. That happened in the Rose Bowl in 2017 with Oklahoma and Georgia. You know, Oklahoma built the big lead. They're going up and down the field, but they couldn't stop Georgia's offense, which she was lucky to score 25 points in a game before that one. And that's what happens. The more physical – this game continues to be very simple. It's who's the more physical team and, you know, who could stop the other one and who's faster in a lot of ways. And I think this Michigan team all year, I think we've all doubted them, you know, oh, well, they're going to run into Ohio State or they're not going to beat Penn State on the road or they're not going to do this. They were relentless, and they were the best team in college football this year, start to finish. And I'll give them credit for that. I'm sorry for doubting them. I think a lot of us look at the recruiting rankings and we can't get that. It's a mental crutch for many of us, myself included at times. And you're like, well, they don't have all these 5 stars. Oh, no, they don't. They got a lot of damn good football players who are going to play a long time in the NFL. And no matter how you do it and put it together, the point is you put it together. And I just can't say enough about the way they played the game. They played it what I would call the right way. It's the game we all love when we watched it. Kind of a lull in the action, second half, you know, when it was 20-13. But I give credit to Washington and those kids for hanging in there. I mean, they were outmatched. There's no question about it. And then I also give credit to the Michigan defense, which has been elite all season. After Washington scores, makes it a 20-13 game at half. I took the under, so I was like, hey, it's going to go. I was happy that it went under. I didn't think it was in the first half, but, you know, holding them to 0 in the second half and then eventually the floodgates opened, that's how Michigan's been winning all year. And they won it, and congratulations. Go Blue.
I certainly don't disagree with anything you said. I do think if you have all those parts, the dominating defense, the line of scrimmage, speed on the outside, and then you throw in a next-level quarterback, it's almost unbeatable in college football unless you go up against another team that has the same thing, which was like most of those Alabama-Georgia classics, whether it was in Atlanta or in the playoff, that's what you had. Like they both had all of those goodies, and somebody had to lose, not because the other team was bad or missing something or incomplete. It's just because somebody had to lose. In this case, and by the way, I mean, J.J. McCarthy, if J.J. McCarthy played in another offense, I'm not sure people understand how talented J.J. McCarthy is. He made a few runs last night where you're like, oh, dude, if you hadn't seen him, and I know a lot of people just, you're having allegiance to a certain conference, so maybe you ignored the Big Ten all year. Or maybe you tuned in for like a quarter or a half of Michigan, Ohio State. So you're not that familiar with McCarthy. But like McCarthy is legit. Like McCarthy, I don't know if he's going to start in the NFL. I don't know if he's going to be a first-round pick or a third-round pick, but he's going to be a fairly high pick. He's going to make a lot of money at the next level, and he has an incredible skill set. But they don't ask him to do all that in the offense. I hate the term game manager. I know what that truly means for a lot of people. It's a slight. It's a very specific, targeted slight that many talking heads on TV use to diminish certain quarterbacks and inflate other quarterbacks. I know that game. He's not a game manager. But in that offense, that is kind of what, at times, they ask him to do, because you have just two studs at running back. You've got an offensive line that mauls people. And then when you need McCarthy to make a play, he can use his legs. And they don't throw the ball a ton. But make no mistake about it, J.J. McCarthy could certainly be a 300-yard passer in college football per game and light up some scoreboards if you needed him to. They don't need him to. So like you said, go ahead. I hear typing. Is that you or is that?
No, that's actually my dog running around.
Oh, that's your dog.
That's Red. No, I'm not.
Like on a tin roof.
Brother, we got so many complaints. I got the keyboard.
The keyboard is quiet. It's just the dog.
I got a wireless keyboard. I set it.
Red, pipe it down, Red.
He was excited because he's getting fed right now, and that's
there. You
feeding
go.
Him right now. So it's feeding time. He's does a little dance, but no. Yeah, McCarthy's one of those kids too that he went to IMG, and I've always said there's no difference between kids that come from IMG and elsewhere. I like the guys that run that place down there a lot. I worked with them when I was with ESPN. They were part of the Under Armour deal. So I don't want to, I'm not coming down on them, but is it good for high school football? I don't know. Well, during the pandemic, when JJ was a recruit up here in Chicago, he's a Chicago kid. This place was like North Korea. I mean, there's no football. The Grinch, JB Pritzker, stole football from everybody. And so they had no football that year. And in 2020, so he had to go down there. I think it actually helped him because he got another season in. And then right away, he starts competing for that job. It's hard to play quarterback for Jim Harbaugh because he is a quarterback. It's like Steve Spurrier in that way. The guys that played the position, they're a little perfectionist-ish. And I think he's a winner. JJ's a winner, man. Stats. You're right. If he was in Washington's system, who knows how many yards he'd put up. But and game manager, to your point there too, Mike. Look, the job of the quarterback is to manage the game.
Right.
I mean, Tom Brady is the ultimate game manager, is he not? He
is, but when you use that, when people use that term, what they're really trying to say, well, he's not athletic, and therefore he's just a byproduct of being surrounded. I mean, they're using this with Brock Purdy now in San Francisco. He's just a byproduct of having a great defense and running game around him. Tom Brady was one of the most accurate and clutch quarterbacks in all. That's not a game manager, folks. That is a next-level clutch gene champion that we haven't seen before, and I'm not sure if we'll see again in our lifetime. That's not a game manager. Meanwhile, if somebody just runs all over the field but doesn't win crap, we say he's next level, the new generation of quarterback. It's again, so much of that is garbage. You can win games either way. Lamar Jackson, this will be a big year for him because he hasn't played well in the postseason, but he's going to have another MVP season, and he deserves it. He's electric, and he can be phenomenal. So you can win it that way. Or this whole notion that you can't win games in the pocket, that's ridiculous. And most people will tell you, particularly at the next level, you've got to be able to throw from the pocket. Penix yesterday tried to throw from the pocket. And let me start there. Michael Penix, if we were just going, I'm kind of an NFL draft junkie. I have a sickness. I watch all 7 rounds every year. I like playing GM. I like analyzing and projecting what I think in my own mind. will work at the next level. I don't print a report. I don't get paid to do it. That's okay. It's just a little fun that I have. If you were to just break down tape of college football quarterbacks this year, nobody had better tape than Michael Penix. Nobody. He was outstanding from start to finish. He threw for, I think, going into that game, nearly 4,700 yards. And he's doing all this coming off 2 shoulders and 2 knee injuries. And then obviously, if you watched last night, something with his rib cage, he looks all banged up, what have you. He's been remarkably accurate. He came into that game 76%. He was 50% yesterday. And I get it. Michigan's defense, which is nasty, had a lot to do with it. Some of it was mental with Michael Penix. He missed throws. He missed a wide open. This changed the game. Odunze, who is a stud, who's going to be a lot of fun to watch in the NFL, by the way. I'd definitely spend a first-round pick on him. He's got his man beat on one play. They're down a score. And Penix just missed him. Wasn't that he got hit? It wasn't that he was, somebody breathing right down his neck. He just missed him. And that was in his mind. They kept using the word uncomfortable. He was uncomfortable. And for much of the year, playing behind the Joe Moore Award offensive line, he didn't have to worry about being uncomfortable. He had a nice, healthy, clean, cozy pocket to throw from, and he's got terrific wide receivers, and that's why nobody stopped that offense. Well, Michigan was going to make him uncomfortable. They did, and he played probably the worst game he's played as a college quarterback. He still is going to be a first-round pick and might light the world on fire in the NFL, but for one night, he wasn't that good. And then he didn't get a lot of help. On a 4th and 1, you got a receiver that drops an easy pass in the flat, should have been caught. I thought the Washington defense kept them in the game. That was the surprise. Like, the defense stepped it up in the second half, and they just kept begging the offense, come on, guys. Kalen DeBoer is still a great coach. Ryan Grubb still a great offensive coordinator. Odunze is going to be a first-round pick. Penix is going to be a first-round pick. Dylan Johnson is a problem. None of that changes. They just got beat by a better team, as you pointed out, the best team in college football all year long. The thing that stood out to me, and I think Herb Street mentioned something like this, it's the first time I really focused on the Michigan defense. And I already knew names, like Graham, like Harrell, like Colson. I already was familiar with, and you said they weren't 5 stars. I'm guessing a lot of these guys are 4 stars, right? I mean, these are not like under-the-radar recruits.
Colston Loveland was the tight end from Idaho. He's from Idaho. He was a 4-star, low 4-star.
Yeah.
Now, defensively, Will Johnson was a 5 in-state kid.
What was Jalen Harrell?
I don't have him in front of me.
I don't mean to put you on the spot. What was Junior Colson? I mean, that dude is ridiculous. It's everywhere.
Let me just look that up, Mike, because I think I'm reading an article. I glanced at an article about Michigan's 2022 class, and they flipped a lot of guys. Keon Sabb was a flip from Clemson. Loveland, they found him in Idaho. The backup quarterback that came in was flipped from Virginia Tech. They flipped Derek Moore from Oklahoma that year.
Well, you know much more about this than probably anybody listening right now. All I know is, like, every year they're in the top 20 in recruiting rankings.
So it's not like they're always up there.
So it's not like these are a bunch of, like, Rudy type stories. These are still studs coming out of high school. Not all 5 stars, not Georgia, Alabama level, but still pretty darn good.
Yeah, I mean, Donovan Edwards was a 5-star. McCarthy was a high 4. Let me get the composite up because I don't want to just.
All right. Well, while you're doing that, so let me just say, watching it, what is amazing that you can just see on TV. And, of course, you can hear the hits. It was a violent game. It was beautiful. I mean, you can hear pads popping all over the place. But how they pursue. Like a guy just catches a simple route underneath, past the defensive line in front of the linebackers. And very often a play like that comes down to one-on-one. Can the guy who catches it make the one guy miss? And if he does, it's a chunk play. And if he doesn't, it's just a modest gain. Well, forget about chunk plays against Michigan's D, because what happens is that same play, the linebacker converges, the safeties come down. They're racing in like they're with their hair on fire. And a couple of 275-pound defensive linemen, they're going ahead and pursuing from behind. They never give up on the play. They're so well coached. They're so hard to deal with because it's not one or two Outland Trophy type. It's just 11 guys that are all connected, to use a basketball term, and all know what to do, where to be, max effort every play. And that's what you saw last night. They were a problem all year long. You're giving up like 10 points a game. And so if you have those opportunities like Penix did, you cannot miss. You just can't, because there's not going to be many more opportunities to strike gold against that Michigan D. So they missed it. Congratulations to the Wolverines. I tweeted this out. I think it's really easy to forget just what Harbaugh was. You and I started doing this in 2016, and I felt like you and I at times were on an island because everybody wanted to see Jim Harbaugh fired, including a lot of Michigan fans, if we're being honest. You lose to Ohio State 5 years in a row, and you usually don't keep your job. I mean, they've been trying to fire Ryan Day now because he's lost 3 years in a row to Michigan. But I said last night as I'm watching the game and the post game, just your typical coaching story. Lose to your biggest rival 5 years in a row. Be told you have to take a $4 million pay cut. Never forget that. They went to Jim Harbaugh and said, if you want to keep your job, you need to cut $4 million. Was it because Michigan ran out of money? No. It was because they were proving a point. Number 3, get suspended for 6 games during the title run, then go on and lead your alma mater to a title. I mean, that story is Hollywood would reject the script because it seems silly, but that's what happened. That's what happened. And now the guy that many fans wanted gone, the guy that took the $4 million pay cut, they are begging him not to take an NFL job and to hang around Ann Arbor to keep this thing going. And I love their coordinators in Minter and Moore, and they both have head coach written all over them. But I'm going to tell you what, if you lose Jim Harbaugh, that is not going to be replaced. Like that you can steal the barbecue recipe, but at some point you've got to make adjustments. There's a certain type of personality that comes with it. Jim, by the way, he's a weird dude. Like, I don't take Jim Harbaugh to the party because he's kind of socially awkward, and it doesn't matter. He's a hell of a coach. He's a next-level freaking coach. I think he belongs in college football. I don't assume he's going to do the same thing he did in San Fran the first time if he goes back to the NFL. He's 60 years old. He's weird. He's not the quote-unquote cool NFL coach that we have today. But with the NCAA thing lurking and with everything else going on, he might just pack up and leave. If so, I hate it for college football.
Yeah, that would be bad. I like him because he's won. He's the best situation he's ever taken over is Michigan. And I think I said that when he got hired because we had this podcast at the time. I also predicted he would be in the playoff within 3 years, and I was a few years behind on that one.
Not
he
many.
Almost at year 3. I mean, if he hadn't lost Ohio State, they would have gone. But then they had the bad pandemic year. They were just not very good in 2020. Just never kind of got going. Lost some games. I'll tell you this. You mentioned recruiting. So Jalen Harrell is a 3-star from Tampa.
3-star, wow.
Yeah, oh, there you go. That's why you recruit Florida, man, because you can get a guy like that, and in 4 years, he's a beast. By and large, most of their guys were, there were a lot of guys in the top 100, but then there were a lot of guys like Roman Wilson was kind of a top 250, Blake Corum, top 250
Love that
guy.
dude. Wilson's a stud.
They weren't all as highly rated as maybe a J.J. McCarthy was, and then, of course, the corner that they have, Will Johnson, was a 5-star. But, there's not a lot of compared to Georgia and Alabama and some other schools that they're probably, if you just looked at the star ratings, middle of the pack in the SEC. But that goes to show you, too, star ratings are a projection of what a guy could become. It's always going to be a talent maximization game. Right. And different guys maximize, some guys don't. So the college football talent tracker, and this takes everybody's star rating out of high school and spits it out. It's not really valid because it doesn't take into account transfers, doesn't take into account they didn't re-rate them. It's just how are they kind of big picture recruiting compared to everybody else when they sign the guys. So Michigan's 14th behind such illustrious powerhouses as Miami, Penn State, who they just lined up and didn't even throw a pass and beat, Oklahoma, who's probably going to struggle in the SEC. Texas A&M is 4th in this category.
Wow.
And, of course, Ohio State and Alabama, who they beat. So, star ratings mean something, but they don't mean everything. There's something to be said for player development
right.
and all that. But Harbaugh, man, here's a guy, because his dad was a college coach, right? He's a coach, comes from a well-known coaching family. I'll never forget when he took the Colts to the AFC Championship game either.
Yeah,
you remember that?
Right.
Or was that
sure
Neil
do.
O'Donnell? Was that Neil O'Donnell?
No, Harbaugh did it.
That was Harbaugh. Yeah, that was Harbaugh.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. And by the way, South Carolina fans that were talking smack because you're 3-1 against Michigan, and Will Muschamp beat Harbaugh a few years back. The one time Michigan won was the '85 opener. Keith Jackson was at Williams-Brice. Michigan 34, South Carolina 3. And guess who the quarterback was for Michigan that day?
Jim Harbaugh.
Jim freaking Harbaugh. So Gamecocks, I wouldn't crow too loudly about this. But anyway, the guy, he could have easily gotten an assistant coaching job somewhere through his dad's connections, started at Michigan or whatever. This dude started at the University of San Diego.
You're stealing my thunder on the deep dive. You're at
okay.
You're
all right, I'll stop.
Right.
I'll stop.
Well,
I knew a guy that played there.
Yeah, no, and you brought up the playing career, and it's worth noting because we're old enough to remember Harbaugh, the player. He spent much of he was a first-round draft pick out of Michigan, but he spent much of his career getting his ass chewed by Mike Ditka. They didn't always get along. And he followed McMahon, which, McMahon was just a godlike figure in Chi-Town, as you well know, living there now, JC. It's probably, you can't go into a sports bar without seeing a number 9 McMahon jersey, not to mention Walter Payton, et cetera. But so he didn't have like the best NFL career, but he played a long time in the NFL. And then to your point, like this was not a guy, son of a coach, a longtime player, big name. He didn't go the Dion route, is another way of putting it. He grinded and paid some major dues, okay? He started off as a quarterback coach for the Oakland Raiders. Then, you're right, University of San Diego. Not San Diego State, where Marshall Faulk and Dan McGuire and San Diego. They're the Toros, right?
Toreros.
Toreros.
Yeah, it's a small private school. It's not,
what is a Torero?
I don't know. I know my friend.
Can I get that in 4-wheel drive?
A guy I worked with at Rivals.com, Noah Stanley, one of my mentors, really. He's from L.A., and he played football there. He's a running back. And they were god-awful. And when Harbaugh got that job, I was working there with Noah, and we'd look up the San Diego scores, and they went – I'll let you continue.
Well, yeah. Well, I'll just keep it because I know we're running out of time in the A block here. But 3 years he's the coach of San Diego. Then he goes to Stanford. Everybody knows Stanford's a mess now. Stanford was a mess when he got the job, and in his first year, I'll never forget this game because on my radio show we would do a contest, the Fab Five Challenge, which we now do on another show. And Stanford played the height of the Pete Carroll Southern Cal teams. They were a 42-point underdog, and Stanford won the game as a 42-point dog. One of the biggest upsets. It might have been the biggest upset at the time in the history of the sport of college football. Then he gets a guy like Andrew Luck, and before you know it, they're playing in BCS games. So that he parlays that into the 49ers job, and he's got Alex Smith, and they're winning playoff games, and he's got Kaepernick, and they're winning playoff games. And then he takes the Michigan job, and like I said, you lose to Ohio State 5 straight years, and a lot of people want you gone. And Jim rubs a lot of people the wrong way, and they want you gone for that. But the guy just he doesn't need to coach at this point in his life. He just loves to friggin' coach. He loves the hustle. He loves the grind. So after playing like nearly 15 years in the NFL, paying a bunch of dues as a college coach, gets your NFL job, leads San Fran to a Super Bowl, then goes back to his alma mater, and here he is. So he's, Steve Spurrier was a different kind of dude, right? Like, a lot of people hated him. A lot of people didn't understand him. Same kind of, like, I don't want to say socially awkward, but a little bit different. Jim Harbaugh's like that. But that's good. Like, we need more of that. We don't want just cookie-cutter, milquetoast coaches all across the country. So I really hope he stays. And, again, kudos to him. I had no dog in the fight. I just enjoyed it. I'll admit it's a little weird watching a national championship game without an SEC team in it. I don't know what if the ratings are out yet. Maybe it's a little bit down. Who cares? Bottom line is, it was great, and it's a good story. It's good for college. We've talked about this for years on this show, and this is coming from two SEC guys. It's good for the health of college football to have geographical balance, to not just have the same teams from the Sun Belt winning it and competing for it every year. What they really need is somebody from the West Coast to be relevant. I'm talking to you, Lincoln Riley. They've got two programs in the Midwest who are relevant. The Northeast might be, quite frankly, a lost cause unless you consider Penn State Northeast, kind of, sort of, and James Franklin can't win a big game, so that's going to be on hold for a while. So anyway, I think it's good. I enjoyed the game. It wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing, but if you like nasty defense, it was a line of scrimmage game, and Michigan was certainly better on the line. And that is how 2023-24 comes to a close. We had two unbelievable semifinal games. This game was at least competitive. So I would say in the 10 years of the 4-team playoff, this would rank number one based on the composite of all three games, right? Because usually the semis were dogs. Last year, the semis were great, but the championship game was a dog. In this case, all three games had merit. So I would say that they're finishing up the 4-team on a high note, and thank goodness we're going to a 12-team.
Yeah, the 14 playoff era, Mike, ended as it begun with a Pac-12 Big Ten title game in the state of Texas.
Yeah, that's right.
It was in Dallas that first year with Ohio State. And I'll say this, too, just to put a bow on this. I talk often about caged animal hires. And so let's look at the two Big Ten national champions during this era. Both were caged animal hires. There was nobody that made more sense for Michigan than Jim Harbaugh when they hired him. There was nobody that made more sense for Ohio State than Urban Meyer when they hired him. Both were native sons. I know Urban played at Cincinnati, not at Ohio State, but in that state, man, everybody's a Buckeye.
Yeah.
And it's special, and it just made total sense. And it paid off for both schools. So hats off to those that make the caged animal hire, because that it doesn't always work out, but it's like Sex Panther from Anchorman. 60% of the time, it works 40% of the time.
All the time. It's fantastic line, by the way. Whammy!
We'll start calling them Sex Panther hires instead of caged
Sex Panther hires. We'll have to change the rating on this show from 12 plus to 18 plus, whatever. But I do love that analogy, and you've used it before. What's interesting, and before fan bases say, why can't we make a caged animal hire? Well, first off, I mean, these are schools with major cachet, right? Secondly, think of all the caged animal hires recently that didn't work. Lincoln Riley hasn't worked at Southern Cal. Tom Herman didn't work at Texas. Mario Cristobal's not working real well at Miami. I mean, you could make the case these were all caged animal hire. Obviously, Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M.
Chip right. Kelly almost got fired. Yeah,
Chip Kelly at UCLA, caged. So I don't know what the winning percentage is on these caged animal Sex Panther hires, but it might be less than 50% when you think about it.
Well, Jimbo would definitely be one because obviously with the contract.
Sure.
A&M was just not going to be denied there. But, I mean, was Chip Kelly I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mean, Chip Kelly turned down the Florida job like everybody thought. He was this great offensive innovator. He tried the NFL. It didn't work, but everybody's like, well, if he could do half of what he did at Oregon, it's a home run. And it just hadn't been there.
Yeah, to me, it wasn't like UCLA. It was like Chip Kelly or bust, because he had. Now, Florida, had they gotten him? I don't know. So, I'll have to really go through and see. Now, I know Nick Saban was just because of how Alabama went about it. They were like, they almost got stuck with Rich. They almost got Rich Rodriguez, but then they were like, all right, screw it. We're Alabama. We're going to go make this happen. I think Urban
also
Meyer
wanted Spurrier.
at Florida. Yeah, I think Urban Meyer at Florida was a caged animal hire in a certain way.
Yeah, that's a win. That's a win.
Was Kirby smart? Nah, Kirby Smart was kind of the guy, the native son, and he's about to go to South Carolina. And I think
you can't be a caged. You can't be a caged animal hire if you haven't had success as a head coach yet. Kirby hadn't had success as a head, so I can't label that caged animal hire.
Yeah, you got and eventually some other school. I think Lincoln Riley, when he was
that's caged animal.
Yeah.
That's heck yeah.
Animal.
Heck
that's
yeah.
Like we're done. We're done with recycling the Pete Carroll era, and we're going to go.
They stole him from a blue blood.
Yeah, we're going.
And they gave him the keys to everything. Everything. Yeah. He's living on the one street in California that doesn't have human feces. They gave him everything over there. And it hadn't worked. So I think there'd be two fascinating. We'll do this on another show. The two fascinating case studies: the caged animal, Sex Panther, hire, the success rate in the last 10, 20 years, and then as it pertains to Jim Harbaugh, the success rate of college coaches in the NFL. And I know the numbers on that right off the bat are not good. Because for every Jimmy Johnson and Pete Carroll, there are a ton of guys that went to the NFL and failed miserably. Something else to consider that if you're Jim Harbaugh. I get it. He had success in San Fran. No guarantee if he takes the Charger job that it's going to work out again. And by the way, old Flockin Flute, whatever his name is over there.
Oh, my God.
He's staying, baby.
He's staying. That franchise. I don't know why I decided I live here, and my lovely bride is a big Bears fan. And
you're good,
man. I like the energy when they play. It's different. You go into a sports bar on a Sunday in the South, everybody's either like from out of town wearing their jersey for some other school at Buffalo Wild Wings watching Sunday, or they're glued to their phone watching their fantasy team, and it's just subdued, right? It's a hangover cure. And maybe it's different places like Atlanta, but most of the South, Greenville, Columbia, Nashville. But up here, man, the energy is just like a college atmosphere with the Bears. But God mighty, they're terrible. They're terribly managed. Kevin Warren is the president of the Bears, Mike. Just to
I'm aware. Oh yeah, no, I'm aware.
He is a genius.
I am. Yeah, all you can do is go back to the COVID time and see that on full display.
Guys try to unilaterally cancel college football.
It's the president's fault. He had nothing to do with it. All right, we got to take a timeout. The highly anticipated. We always talk about the morale of a great nation relies heavily on the JC5. Well, in 2024, we want to get the morale started off on the right foot. So we will do that. A quick timeout. More JC and Morgan, 2024 style, after a quick break.
Down here in the South, we don't always see eye to eye. While our taste in college football teams, or what sauce, if any, goes best on a rack of ribs, or what to mix with our Dixie vodka might be up for debate, we can all agree there's nothing better than a Southern tailgate. And like our favorite college teams, our ingredients come from small towns and big cities. They're grown in Southern soil, are crafted by Southern hands, and proudly represent the South in our backyard and beyond. So raise a glass of Dixie Southern Vodka to celebrate being made in America and raised in the South.
Hey, folks, want to tell you about our friends at Titan Construction Group really quick. They're a mid-Atlantic-based general contractor, specializes in retail, restaurant, and office construction. TCG strives to separate itself from other general contractors by adding value every step of the process. From project budgeting to estimation, value engineering to construction, they focus on those relationships and not the transaction. Titan builds partnerships one project at a time. Among their clients are Starbucks, Crumble Cookie, Blake Pizza, Home Goods, 15 plus years experience, based in Midlothian, Virginia, and contracted in Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. So get on their website, TitanCG.com, TitansCGinc.com. That's TitansCGinc.com. Get in touch with Brad if you're in need of a general contractor that focuses on going above and beyond for their clients. That's Titan Construction Group, a proud sponsor of the JC and Morgan podcast.
South Carolinians, this message is for you, as well as for people in Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee. If you think you may need work done to your roof or a new roof altogether, there's one simple name to remember: Elite Roofing and Restoration. South Carolina native Jeremy Johnson has been helping people in the South make sure they have the very best people checking on and building new roofs for over 25 years. Fully licensed, bonded, and insured, they provide the best service possible. Call or email today, 678-781-1998. That's 678-781-1998, or you can go to EliteRoofingGA.com. Schedule a no-hassle free inspection today. Wind damage, hail damage, or just wear and tear. Don't settle for second best. Let Jeremy Johnson and Elite Roofing and Restoration take care of it all for you today.
All right, back with you here on JC and Morgan. Before we get to the JC5, I want to welcome one of our new sponsors. We've had some, you just saw a commercial for, in fact, you see JC wearing the Titan Construction Group cap. Much love to them. Much love to Elite Roofing and Construction. In that same realm, we have a lot of construction pros and contractors that listen. I want to make sure you know about my friends at Site Pro Rentals. When renting equipment, it's important to have a local, easy-to-do business with friend in the industry who carries only the newest equipment and creates efficiency for you and your project job site. The team at Site Pro Rentals can do just that when reliability, service, and transparent pricing matter. And when do they not? You need to use Site Pro Rentals if you want to do work with local, easy-to-do business with professionals and are ready for better equipment rental. Call my friends at Site Pro. Easy number to remember, 972-RENT-NOW. It's 972-736-8669. And with that, we welcome in the first yearly installment of the JC5.
It's time for the top topics in the sport. We bring the JC5. Number 1. It's time for the top.
Hey, it's a 2 for Tuesday here, coming up on a 5 o'clock rock block. You only need to do that once, I think, but yeah.
Sorry about the mute there. That my dog was barking, so I had to. He's frisky in the mornings, man. He's getting older, but man, he still gets up.
Get some, Red. Get some.
He's like the Burgess Meredith character from Grumpy Old Men. Yeah, give me bacon and liquor. So anyway.
You know, is that a $5 for you? I never saw it.
I've seen it a couple times.
Okay.
I like Burgess Meredith. Burgess Meredith, see? My name is Burgess Meredith. Mike, you got to go out there and hit them hard, kid.
Women weaken legs.
Women weaken legs.
What's the matter, Rock? What do you mean you don't? After all this time and all these years, you don't know what to do. Now go out there and do it. Do it, kid.
A little angel on your shoulder. This here's my favorite thing on earth. Marky Marciano,
Oh, man.
baby. It's a cufflink. Anyway.
Those are
He's a
dimers, by
tomato.
the way.
Yeah, I can recite most of that.
Oh, yeah. We'll get back to 5 and dime here soon enough. I promise you. We'll have a little more time.
My Burgess Meredith impersonation sounded surprisingly good. So I was like, I'm going to go with that for a
Your
while.
impersonations are spot on. Now, you have about 3 that you keep going back to, but
Yeah.
I think we're going to expand the catalog in 2024.
We have to. All right, it's an end of the era in college football, Mike. And it's not just the expanded playoff. We're going to have bi-coastal conferences, things like that. So my question would be, on the subject of Washington, is Washington sustainable in the Big Ten?
Sustainable meaning can they keep winning a lot of games?
Can they keep winning?
I think so. Look, we talked about Michigan's recruiting rankings. If you look at Washington's and how they got here, it's a whole different path. Now, they truly are, in a modern way, the Rudy, much like not quite TCU, but not far away. And having worked on games with a former Washington Husky who would remind me repeatedly, you guys think you know football in the South and enough of the SEC. We got a power in Washington. You've never been to a game in Seattle. Okay, I got it. And they do have history, and they did win a national title in our lifetime. And they do have facilities and a stadium. And if you've been to Seattle, and I have a couple of times, it's not just a pro town. They freaking love their Huskies. I mean, they're all about it. The question is, I think for some, is can they ever get to the level of Michigan, Ohio State? And I think they can. Like, I think the recruiting, which the recruiting rankings, one of those years under DeBoer was like, 86 or something ridiculous. This is not a team of blue chippers. Am I right?
Yeah, it's not. Well, yeah, not really. They got a lot of guys out of the portal, and even like Penix and Dylan Johnson. I mean, Penix was
Transfers.
once a Tennessee commit. Jeremy Pruitt said he didn't want him, and then he went to Indiana. And then Dylan Johnson was like a 3-star kid that went to Mississippi State and told Mike Leach off on the way out the door, which was bad. The bad luck.
I remember that. Yes,
but yeah, he was South Carolina or Washington for him, and he had a little bit better NIL deal out there. Tough player, But yeah, so they've kind of pieced it together. I think Caleb DeBoer is such a good coach. That's the difference with them.
Yeah,
they're
I totally agree.
Very well coached.
And if you remember, we went over, I only vote on 2 things: the Heisman, which I thought was fairly easy with Jalen Daniels, and the Home Depot Coach Award, which I could have given it to Jed Fish. I could have given it to there were some great candidates this year in college football. I gave it to DeBoer because I know what they were when he took over for Coach Lake. They were like a 4-win team. Okay.
Lake was a disaster.
Lake ran it into the ground. He kind of Willie Taggarted it. And then you needed somebody to go in there and try to turn it around quickly, and he did. You couldn't turn that around much more quickly.
Chris Peterson, which was a caged animal hire at the time, if you remember.
Yeah.
Because remember, nobody can get him out of Boise. Well, UW did, and DeBoer took him a step further than Peterson ever did. So wow.
That's right. That's right.
And that guy's good. So here's my take on it. I think Washington and Oregon right now, looking at it, I think they're more sustainable than UCLA and Southern Cal in that league. And I'll tell you why. Weather. It's not terribly cold in Seattle like it is in the Midwest, but it's not sunny. Southern Cal. You don't have the California. You recruit a lot out of California, but it's not the California lifestyle up in the Northwest. It's a little different. And I think that there's something to be said for that when these teams are going to have to go east and go to Bloomington, Indiana in late November in front of 10,000 hearty souls and a bowl of soup and try to win a football game against these massive offensive lines and the ground and pound of the Big Ten. But I think the Northwest, to me, I have less questions about their sustainability in that league than I do the Los Angeles schools, which sounds crazy because the LA schools have so many more resources and surrounded by so much more talent. Yeah. I just think Oregon and Washington have just put in the work the last 10 years to where they're good. Everybody knows they're good. They're attractive schools. And they're kind of more suited to go play in the weather and all that than maybe the LA kids. I don't know.
And they got an NIL money too.
Oh,
we'll never know what the payrolls are because it's not public. So we don't know who's the number one payroll team. We kind of have an idea of who's in the top 5 and who's not, but they're certainly competitive. And like I said, when you go to Seattle, unlike when I go to LA, and I've only been there a few times in the last few years to do NFL games, but the moment I get off the plane, the moment I drive around in my car and I tune into sports radio, and then I go to SoFi Stadium, I from moment one to the one I leave, I'm like, that's an NFL town. It's an NFL town. I know they didn't have NFL football for years, but it's an NFL town. I go to Seattle, and yeah, they love their Seahawks, but man, that whole state loves them some UW.
Yeah, and the Cougs too out in the
and
East
the Cougs.
It's a nice rivalry, and they hate Oregon with a passion.
Right? Yeah,
that Oregon Washington game's a border. It's like Michigan Ohio State. They freaking hate each other.
Yeah, no, you've seen that firsthand.
A buddy that's a Ducks fan is like, I don't like Oregon State at all, but I hate UW. Yeah,
I hate UW. No, I think it's a great addition. And look, this was a flex for the Big Ten last night. You basically saw 2 Big Ten franchises that you're going to see for a long time. I got into this big discussion on another show about football and geography and everything else, and while ideally it would all be contiguous like the SEC, the fact of the matter is that's not reality for the Big Ten. And if they were going to expand their brand, it wasn't going to make geographical sense. It doesn't matter for football. It matters for every other sport maybe. But when you're taking charter planes for a sport that plays once a year, you got 6 home games, 7 home games a year. As someone who has traveled commercial, which we all do, and it sucks, versus someone who's also traveled on a team charter, which I've had a chance to do for multiple teams, charter flights are pretty damn good, brother. And if it's an hour-long flight versus a 2-hour versus a 3-hour-long flight, when you're sitting there and you're not going through security like the rest of America is, and you're not waiting on delays, and you're not dealing with rude TSA employees, and when you get on the plane, there's a meal waiting for you, not a pack of almonds and a steak, an actual meal with a menu. Do not feel sorry for college football players that travel across the country. Feel sorry for the fans that might have to pay extra to tailgate, but from a player team standpoint, it's a win. Every pickup they made is a win. So Oregon, Washington, win. The conference will be stronger. And yes, I do think once that Florida State domino falls, and that's a whole other can of worms we'll get into again on another show. We are looking at the NFC, AFC. We really are, and I feel bad for the other conferences because they're not going to be able to compete financially.
I still like Chip Kelly's idea. That's the best idea I've heard as to what to do with football and how to.
I liked a lot of it.
Mess. I loved. I mean, just break it off, man, and then let the other sports go back to where they belong. I mean, because you just feel bad. But guess what? College is about learning and experiencing new places. And if you're a volleyball player and you've lived your whole life in New Jersey, you get to go to LA and see the Hollywood sign and all that maybe. So
there you go.
I don't know.
All right.
Silver linings, brother. All right.
Number two.
What would Georgia have looked like against Michigan last night, Mike? And let's go hypothetical and just in your mind, what kind of game would that have been? This year's Georgia team.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I'm processing that in my head. Better defense, more physical on the line of scrimmage. Or Michael Penix, as I said, all year long was the best college football on tape, better than Carson Beck. But for whatever reason, Michigan had a lot to do with it. Make no mistake about it. But he did miss some throws that he just didn't miss, period. Would Carson Beck hold up any better? I don't know. I think it would have been a hell of a game. And, the whole Florida State thing, which we talked about ad nauseum, the team that should be the most pissed to me is still Georgia. It's still Georgia. They in our lifetime, we're not going to see another SEC team win 29 straight, all-time record, break Bear by. We're not going to see that. And so they lose one game by 3 points on a neutral field to Alabama, and all of a sudden they go from number one completely out of the thing. That's ridiculous. Yeah, somebody mentioned Bowers. Bowers is a matchup nightmare, and then it forces you to cheat, so to speak, and double team, and so that leaves other people open. And I think it would have been a really good game, but Washington earned it. I'm not going to dispute that at all. But yeah, I think it would have been a very good game. I still think Michigan, from start to finish, to your original point, was the best team in college football this year, and I'm not gonna change that stance. I think the best team won it all. But yeah, I think Georgia would have been a hell of a game.
That would have, that's where I stand with that. Nothing against Georgia, and I'd have been pissed because, and to your point, Mike, about that, I don't think we're going to see very many teams going undefeated in the SEC at all anymore.
No. Because
you don't get the 15-year break where you don't have to play Alabama or somebody. You're going to be playing every team every other year, and it's going to be a brutal freaking bloodbath. I think. I mean, your chances of going undefeated in the SEC are going to be very slim moving forward. Just with the way
number three.
Said, you don't get to take advantage of a weak division. Okay, well, number three. So, in my opinion. And you mentioned this earlier a little bit, Jimmy Johnson, Barry Switzer, Pete Carroll, kind of in the modern era. Those are the guys that have had success and won significant things on both levels. My theory is this, so I'll push back on what you said a little bit, and I agree you have to be cautionary when you're talking about the NFL because you never know what kind of situation you're going to get into. I mean, look at Nick Saban. He'd have still been in the NFL probably if Drew Brees signed with the Dolphins.
That would have helped. Yeah.
Yeah. He's
instead of Dante Culpepper.
Yeah, good Lord. But I think Harbaugh, even now, and this is the first time he's ever like won it all, you know, because he did not win. His brother beat him in the Super Bowl, which has to be embarrassing. If my brother beat me in the Super Bowl, I don't know what I'd say. You've met my brother. Or at least one of them. Yeah. I think he's a GOAT coach. I think he can go back to the NFL just like Pete Carroll and win. He is a different dude than Pete. And they didn't get along at all when he was at Stanford. They really didn't get along at all when he was with the 49ers. But I will say this. Unlike Pete Carroll, who's coached for how many years now with the Seahawks, he's still liked by his players.
15.
He's still Pete, you know, because he's cool. I think Harbaugh in the NFL, a lot like a Jerry Glanville from back in the day, has a shelf life. I think because his shtick, and we saw it in San Francisco, gets old after a while. But I do think if he takes over a franchise that's on the up, he could win right away and maybe get a Super Bowl. Because I don't see much difference in him and a Jimmy Johnson. I mean, Barry Switzer kind of inherited Jimmy Johnson's team with the Cowboys and won it, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't call Barry a successful NFL coach. He was gift wrapped a title.
I think Jim Harbaugh, since Jimmy Johnson and Pete Carroll, I'd say since Jimmy, I think he's better than Pete. I just think he needs the opportunity. So, your thoughts on if he did take an NFL gig, other than being careful? I would guess you would say he needs a quarterback.
Well, yeah. So you know how I feel on this. If you don't have one, you're not playing for big prizes, and so you take an NFL job, and you can have everything else looking splendid. And if you don't have the quarterback, you're not playing for big prizes. So the obvious one would be Justin Herbert is a big-time quarterback, but that does not have big-time results. So they fired their coach. You know, they haven't like mortgaged their future with a bunch of first-round picks gone or anything like that. You know, that's a franchise you could go in right away and he would make a difference. But he's not taking like the Falcons job, you know, when you're trying to win games with Desmond Ridder. He's not doing that. He would have a pick of the litter type of situation, and he would only go like all these guys now, where there is a established quality quarterback in place. You just can't win it all to do it, and that's what we're talking about here, right? He's not taking an NFL job solely for the money. Michigan will match almost anything. And by the way, David Tepper with he sure as hell ain't going to Charlotte. I've heard that mentioned. Are you kidding me? So Michigan can match anything right now. They're one of the few colleges that could match anything that an NFL team came. So it's not a money grab. It's hey, I want to prove I can pull a Jimmy Johnson, win at both levels, unfinished business, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's what we're talking about here. And I don't know, nobody knows what's inside that brain of Jim Harbaugh. I can't. I mean, again, I watch him being interviewed, and I'm like, did he put his batteries in? Like, he's just a different dude. And I'm not being critical when I say that. Like, I pull for the guy. I like the guy. But man, is he just strange. He's just a weird dude.
Yeah.
He's just different. He's the guy at the party where, like, you try to be social with him and, hey, can I get your beer? And you talk for a couple minutes and it doesn't go anywhere, and you go back to your flock and you're like, yeah, man, I don't know about that guy.
He's a little off.
A little strange. Yeah.
I love him. I think he's a great coach. I think family too. You know, nowadays you have to. I understand he's got a big family, got some adopted kids and some things like that. He's a good man. Like, he does a lot of good for people that goes unnoticed because he is weird. Yeah. But he's a good person. So I don't know. It kind of stinks that the Panthers situation is as bad as it is, because I think quality of life wise, Charlotte, Atlanta, places like that would probably be appealing to him.
The reputation of that franchise, there is no way.
Yeah, but it was compared to Los Angeles, but of course, if you make enough money in LA, he can go move next to Lincoln Riley and be okay.
Yeah, and if even in Atlanta, you got Bijan Robinson, you got Drake London, you've got some guys on defense, but Desmond Ridder is not going to get you to the promised land. So you can't do that. The Kirby question comes up a lot. Kirby to the Falcons, no way, no stinking way. Again, Georgia gobs of money. I don't see, and I don't know if that's a great fit anyway. Again. You mentioned some of the guys that had success. I can give you a lot more, starting with Lou Holtz and the Jets in the 70s and go all the way up to Saban and everybody in between. And I'm probably missing even more recent examples.
Steve Spurrier, Bobby Petrino, Butch Davis did not do well.
Oh, Butch Davis did not do well.
Heck of a college coach.
Petrino with the Falcons was an unmitigated disaster. They still hate him in Atlanta. Yeah, it's a different deal. It's a different deal.
Matt Rule was pretty terrible with the Panthers.
Yeah, he ain't going back. No. They all want to try it. It's an ego thing as much as a money thing, but it's two different skill sets for sure. All right, next one, Mr. Announcer.
Number 4.
All right, those of you out there that think if you're not getting Power 5 level guys, you're not doing well in the transfer portal, I have something for you. Miami took a quarterback from Albany, which also produced. I don't know who the coach at Albany is. I need to look that up, Mike. My God. Jared Verse. And then they send this kid who's really good to Miami, is allegedly going to save the program down there. So all your Miami fans that are friends of yours that follow you actively, since you say such nice things about them all the time, they'll be happy.
Hey, DeVry is not a bad thing, man. And there's nothing wrong with bug inspection and rodent removal. There's nothing. There's noble work in that. And one of these days, the biggest U fans are actually going to get a diploma from that comment.
Greg Gattuso, I guess is his name. So anyway,
Greg Gattuso of the great Tuso coaching chain.
Who knows? Anyway, but he's finding players somehow. That can't be easy. I mean, Albany's up there, kind of, it's the capital of New York, below Syracuse a little. I mean, it's not that attractive, not surrounded by talent there. But anyway, and then Georgia takes UNLV's quarterback, who I've seen play this year, is a damn good player. Doesn't this kind of tell you, Mike, that it's not all about maybe where you are when you start your college career, but who you are as you progress through? I think you're going to see a lot more of these Group of 5 and FCS guys come to this level, not universally, but that they're going to surprise some people.
Well, you've said this a number of times, and it couldn't be more true. This is what's been happening in basketball for years now. Okay, guy lights it up in the Sun Belt, like leads the league in scoring, and then he's going to, in basketball, it's a Power 6 if you include the Big East. Somebody's going to poach him, gobble him up, and you'll see him starting, not on the bench. They don't go to a big program just to sit on the bench. They go to start and then put up numbers there. You look at these teams that are going in the Final Four, they're not chock full of McDonald's All-Americans. There's actually more portal power than there is Mickey D's. And so that has been going on in basketball for a while. That is now going on in football. You're absolutely right. I remember I might have told this story a year ago. I'm doing a MAC game with Cole Kubelik and really good sideline reporter, and of course I just forgot his name. Anyway, there was a linebacker for one of those, Miami of Ohio or Kent State or somebody. They all start to bleed together. And after the game, we talked about the game, but all that they were talking about was, it's just a matter of time before that kid's going to Power 5. And within like 72 hours, he announced he's leaving and he's going to SEC school, ACC school, Big Ten school, XYZ. Like, that's just where we are now. It's a feeder system. I hate to put it that way. But the Group 5 and the FCS, if you're really good and you still got eligibility, you're going to be gobbled up. And so those coaches that do their due diligence and they find those diamonds in the rough and they develop those players, what you're doing is you're setting them up for a coach of a premier program to go ahead and poach them and take them away. That is the new, much like we talk about the NIL world is the new day and age, the portal world is the new day and age of college football, so too is getting really good, talented players from the lower levels of college football, because they're out there and they're not that hard to find. Next
Number
up.
5.
What is SMU's upside in the ACC?
You love SMU. Admit it. You're a closet SMU fan.
Pony Express. I just realized, too, when I was doing some research, every year after the national championship, I test my memory. So I go back and sketch out from memory who's won each national championship. Goes all the way back to like 86 when I first followed the sport to make sure I remember. It's just kind of an exercise I do. I decided to go back to 80 last night. I couldn't remember who won it in 82, and it was or 83. It was actually 83. Either 82 or 83. SMU was undefeated and did not get the vote.
Right.
It was either Penn State or it was Miami in 83.
That's the Pony Express, Dickerson and Craig James.
I think 83 actually was Auburn. They got kind of screwed, but 82 was SMU against Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I've talked to coaches around some sources around the league. They're not so much worried about Cal and Stanford. Stanford's pretty good, and Cal's Cal, but that SMU situation, because of their money and NIL
and location,
they're right there in Dallas in a hotbed. I don't know. Your thoughts?
It's a really good question because they do have. Again, I've said this before. This was the ultimate flex. SMU, with all the talk about leaving one conference for another and the buyout fee you got to pay the conference, which is essentially what's keeping Florida State and Clemson in the league they don't want to be in. And then how much money are you going to get in the new league? This is the calculus that every program has to go through when migrating from one league to the next. SMU said they went to that table and they put their you-know-whats right on the table, and they were full of brass. And they said, we don't want your stinking money. We don't need your stinking money. You just let us play, like Bad News Bears, the sequel, in the Astrodome. Let them play. You just let us play in your league. We will certainly contribute. We got a great fan base, and we've got resources. We don't want a dime of your TV money. Just let us in and see what we can do. That's unprecedented. That's unprecedented. So that right there told me SMU is making a statement. We want to be what we were in the 80s, and we'll do anything we have to get there. And now there are no rules. The only thing that stopped SMU the first time was the NCAA and those damn rules. And they broke them after an egregious violation. They broke them again. And the NCAA did something they've never done since or before and never will again, and that is the death penalty. They basically took a baseball bat to that program and bludgeoned it in the head until it was on life support, and then thankfully they got back, and they've had blips in here and there with June Jones and whatnot. But in a league like the ACC, yeah, they can compete. Are they going to be the level of Florida State Clemson? No, but I'm not sure Florida State Clemson's going to be there by the time this thing all shakes down in a couple of years. So SMU might become the power of the ACC in 2027.
Look, you're talking about a league where Duke and Wake Forest have won significant football games through the Pitt.
Yep.
Pitt's a public-ish, private-ish school. SMU's a private school, just like Wake and Duke. Probably a little bit more rabid fan base. Probably a little bit more commitment there, right, than as we've seen through the years. I don't know. I'm intrigued that they're in Texas. They can offer something different. I'm intrigued by their money in the NIL world. I looked at their transfer portal class this year, and it's pretty solid. I mean, they got some guys from some bigger schools that are going to help them. But I don't know. I think we'll have to see kind of how it all unfolds and who actually stays in the league. But I think this gives them a chance. I think it really does. I think it's a lot different than being in the American or wherever and, fighting it out with the Tulanes of the world. I think, you get Florida State, you get Notre Dame every so often, too because of
you know what SMU at bare
scheduling
minimum can
agreement.
be? SMU at bare minimum can be TCU, to play a little
Yes.
alphabet soup here. At bare minimum, what does TCU have that SMU doesn't have? Maybe a slightly nicer, bigger stadium, but they're both like private schools with a lot of money in the same area that have tradition, long-standing tradition, but haven't been able to quite get over the hump lately. And now Gary Patterson took TCU to a whole new level. Is there a statue of him yet outside the stadium? There should be. But SMU should certainly be able to be TCU. And now that they're going to a power league, say what you want to say about the ACC, it's a step up from where SMU's been for a long time. And the Big 12 was never going to open its doors to SMU. So, I like where you're going with that. I think it'd be great for college football too to see more ingredients in the gumbo, more blood out there, and especially one that did have tradition and then fell off the radar. And that'd be a great story to see them back and just say like the top 20 and playing great football and maybe make it to a playoff or two. That shouldn't be out of the question. 12-team playoff, baby. Anything's possible. It's like the old the lottery commercials. All it takes is $1 and a dream. Well, now you got a 12-team playoff. You pony up, you get some NIL money, you do what you need to do facilities-wise, you make the right coaching hires, and boom, you're in that 12-team playoff. $1 and a dream.
I love it.
All right, that's it. That's a 5. All right, we'll take a quick
JC5.
break. Yeah, JC5. I loved it. A good way to kick off 2024 with the JC5. The morale, I think the morale is going to be good for the rest of this month at least for this great nation, thanks to the JC5. We'll take a quick timeout. Final segment coming up.
Down here in the South, we don't always see eye to eye. While our taste in college football teams, or what sauce, if any, goes best on a rack of ribs, or what to mix with our Dixie vodka might be up for debate, we can all agree there's nothing better than a Southern tailgate. And like our favorite college teams, our ingredients come from small towns and big cities. They're grown in Southern soil, are crafted by Southern hands, and proudly represent the South in our backyard and beyond. So raise a glass of Dixie Southern Vodka to celebrate being made in America and raised in the South.
South Carolinians, this message is for you, as well as for people in Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee. If you think you may need work done to your roof or a new roof altogether, there's one simple name to remember: Elite Roofing and Restoration. South Carolina native Jeremy Johnson has been helping people in the South make sure they have the very best people checking on and building new roofs for over 25 years. Fully licensed, bonded, and insured, they provide the best service possible. Call or email today, 678-781-1998. That's 678-781-1998, or you can go to eliteroofingga.com. Schedule a no-hassle, free inspection today. Wind damage, hail damage, or just wear and tear. Don't settle for second best. Let Jeremy Johnson and Elite Roofing and Restoration take care of it all for you today.
Hey, this is Mike Morgan, and like many of you, I love staying active. It makes me feel better. It helps me enjoy a better life. But whether you're a world-class athlete or someone just keeping the dream alive like me, you'll want to make sure you have someone who can handle the injuries that are going to arise. That's where the world-renowned Dr. Michael Hatrack of Synergy Sports Wellness and Synergy Release Sports come into play. He's been my guy for nearly a decade, and he has served thousands of people, including over 400 NFL players, over a career that spans 47 years. Yeah, he's that good. And his staff's personalized biomechanical treatments and therapies can handle it all. Back pain, knee pain, shoulder pain. We all know the injuries, but few know the solutions the way Dr. Hatrack and his terrifically trained staff do. I've seen others. No one delivers the results the way they do. That's why people from all over the country come to Synergy's 2 Georgia locations, Buckhead and Alpharetta. Dr. Hatrack has trained a team of chiropractors in his proprietary technique that has been proven to yield life-changing outcomes from professional athletes to the Joe Schmoes of the world like, well, me. Check out the website to set up an appointment today, SynergyReleaseSports.com. That's Synergy with an S, ReleaseSports.com. You can also find a link for them on our website, jcandmorgan.com. Let the incredible staff at Synergy take care of you so you can reach your wellness goals.
Uh-oh. We lost Mike. Mike,
there we go.
Unmute.
The
there
mute button.
buddy.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
I don't know what happened there. Couple things before we wrap things up that I thought would be fun. By now you've all seen this, and JC, you mentioned, what about Georgia? What would that look like? Well, this year, if we had a 12-team playoff, the 4 byes, which is going to be a subject of major controversies, how we get to those 4 teams that are in the first-round bye, I have a feeling that's going to be altered a bit. But you'd have Michigan, Bama, Texas, Washington. You'd have Missouri, Oregon playing in the first round, FSU, Liberty, Ole Miss, Georgia, Ohio State, Penn State. I mean, that would absolutely be phenomenal, and it's going to be phenomenal next year and for years to come. It took so long to get here. For years and years, I battled with people on radio, on talk radio, about why we need a playoff. And looking back, and I'm the first one to admit when I'm wrong, and I don't, if my opinion is wrong, my prediction's wrong, I don't care. You know, as I say all the time, it's a lot more entertaining for people to hear about the misses you and I had than the hits. I can sit here and, pound my chest about what I got right. I'll tell you right off the bat, I was wrong about Washington most of this season. But when I think back to some of the stupidity of the counter argument of why we need to keep a system where people vote on the top 2 teams in the country and have computers and the Massey poll and the Sagarin poll, like aliens were looking down on Earth and they were laughing at us hysterically that's how we determined a champion in college football. We no longer will have to do that, and now we'll have 12, so we won't have the FSU debacle again. That's a win for college football. I'll also end with this, JC, and then you can give whatever farewell thoughts you have. The Mark Schlabach, too early, top 25. Yeah, of course it's too early, but I guarantee you, if it popped up on your cell phone, you say, it's ridiculous. It's too early to have a top. Oh, let me see. Who's number 1? That's who we are. Like, the damn with those stupid polls. I don't believe in polls. Where are we ranked? People are going to look. And so you put this out, and it's going to get clicks, right, JC? I mean, you know that.
Mark does it every year.
Every year,
yeah. It's not like it's some surprise.
No. And I like it. I mean, because, again, we're going to be talking football all year round. And by the way, we will talk some college basketball on this show. It's a football show, but we're certainly more than capable of talking other things. And it's shaping up to be a great year in the SEC and basketball for those of you that are SEC fans. But we'll get into all that again another week. We got a ton of stuff to get to and a lot of great guests as well. Number 1, Georgia. Even with the loss of Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey, Dejon Edwards, Lassiter, Bullard, he still believes they're going to be Carson Beck coming back. That's obviously that's what pushes it over the goal line. 2, Texas, 3, Oregon, even with losing Bo Nix, but they got Dylan Gabriel in the portal. You'll notice the common thread here, it's either returning quarterbacks or great quarterbacks plucked out of the portal. Alabama with Milroe back. I mean, they lose studs every year, and then they have studs in waiting every year, so don't be surprised. Ohio State, and of course they lost McCord, but they really wanted. I think they kind of ran him out the door, and they got Will Howard in the portal. They believe that's an upgrade. Michigan 6, no more McCarthy, no more Blake Corum, who I would have voted for the Heisman a year ago had he stayed healthy. No more Donovan Edwards, but they're picking up Jaden Davis. They're picking up all kinds of studs in the portal. And again, the recruiting, the culture. Now, the X factor, of course, on that is, does Harbaugh come back? 7, Ole Miss. 8, Mizzou. It's still weird seeing Mizzou in the top 10. 9, Arizona. I'm a big Jed Fish guy. They were 1-11 in 2021. 1-11. And now they might be preseason top 10. And 10, Notre Dame. So just thought I'd throw that out there. He goes all the way to the top 25. Won't go all the way out there, but it's out there if you want to see it.
Where was Ohio State?
Ohio State was it 6? It was 6. No, it was 5. Michigan.
One of the
6.
craziest things I've seen in the portal so far, Quinshad Judkins from Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Kids from Alabama, right? So, common sense says Mama called. You know, because kids from Alabama, they don't leave. They don't leave. The great ones never leave. And now with the portal, you better watch it because they're all going to go home. No,
how much
no
did
dice.
that? How much was
He's a
that price
Buckeye.
tag? I'm glad you said that because I thought for sure he was going back to Alabama as well. So,
or Auburn won. I mean, you know.
Well, that's what I meant. The state of Alabama, yeah.
That Yellowwood money spends just as good as the Red Elephant.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Auburn doesn't lose a whole lot of bidding wars. We know that.
No.
We know that. But yeah, I mean, has the kid ever been in the state of Ohio in his life? But he's a Buckeye.
Went there, I guess.
Money.
Jeez, I mean, I'm like, all right, cool. That's and it's cold right now. I mean, I'm like, wow. I mean, that surprised me. People ask me all the time, "Are you surprised by this or that?" But that one, I didn't see that coming. I thought for sure he was just heading home. But it's a new world, and some of those rules, like all Alabama kids stay in Alabama. Sometimes that doesn't. I mean, Scooby Williams is from Birmingham. He just went from Florida to Texas A&M. So I guess we see more and more guys leave their states, and I don't know. But that one, I was a little bit stunned by that one. I'll be honest with you.
Anything else as we sign off that has kind of rocked your world here? It's hard to keep up with all the drastic changes going on in this sport that we love. It's great for us because we get to talk about it, but holy smokes, I feel like we're always just one knockout blow after another in terms of news.
Yeah, we'll see if there's any college coaches that dare to jump to the NFL. My guess is we may see one or two, Mike, because of the way college football's become, and the it used to be college coaches would stay in college because the money was similar and the work week in the NFL was ridiculous. Well, now, because you have to recruit your entire roster 365 days a year, it's a little bit more taxing and babysitting like. So you may see some coaches surprisingly jump. I think the NFL, though, is in a period now where they are less fired up about the college coaches unless they fit their pedigree, like a guy like Cliff Kingsbury did. A guy like Lincoln Riley probably would. These whiz kid play caller guys that they tend to want to give head coaching jobs to. Certainly Harbaugh with a track record would be, but it'll be interesting to see if somebody kind of pops up on a radar and says, I'm done with college and all that. And I also want to add this. Gene Smith, the athletic director at Ohio State, which is another person dripping with hypocrisy from the Big Ten. He got up in front of Congress a couple of weeks ago and was like, there's just bad things going on with pay for play and all this other stuff. And what did we just talk about? And you ask any coach, what is the team with even James Franklin mentioned it and how to the dollar amount. Yeah. What is the NIL? What's the toughest team to compete with NIL-wise? It's school's located in Columbus, Ohio. Urban Meyer was working with their collective, for God's sake. If you don't think that guy's still competitive in some ways.
I'll tell you this. I was listening to, Dusty and Danny in the morning on Sirius XM. And they had Ben Hartsock on. You familiar with Ben? Ben was an NFL tight end. I covered him a little bit with the Panthers and played at Ohio State. And he does a really good job on radio. He's just a super bright guy. And he's an Ohio State fan through and through, but he told the story on the air. He basically read the email or letter that he got, basically begging for money. And he said, quote unquote, "This is embarrassing." And it was a letter from Gene Smith, from the AD, saying, "Hey, look, if we're going to compete in this modern day world, if we're going to finally beat Michigan, we're going to have to reach into the coffers."
Those guys have so much. I mean, Ohio is a gigantic state, and they're the only school. The schools that are like the only schools in the state, and they are. I mean, it's them and the Elves, the MAC schools, and Cincinnati's way down there at the bottom. No offense to the Bearcats, but they are dripping with. Dude, they've got so much money. Just hang it up.
They're doing okay.
And Gene Smith's a big hypocrite too. I mean, the only time I've ever sided with him was when Kevin Warren tried to cancel the entire season for everybody. Gene Smith was one of them guys that kind of battled back, but they have him up in front of Congress talking about NIL and a lot of these Big Ten administrators they kind of turn their nose down at the South and the SEC and paint it as some kind of rogue conference. But if you ever look, when stuff really goes wrong, like bad stuff, it's usually in the Big Ten. Michigan State, Urban Meyer at Ohio State, Northwestern, had a scandal. I mean, Iowa had some bad things happen in their weight room. I mean, when they go down hard. Whereas in the SEC, it's normally, they bought this player this one time, and Hugh Freeze should have not ever recruited Laramie Tunzel, but that's a different story.
Oh, there's those pesky McDonald's bags under Jeremy Pruitt.
God.
What a note to end on. And it's again, we want to express our gratitude for you folks sticking with us. This thing grows every day, and we hope to continue to grow. JC's got some great stuff cooking on social media and other things as we kind of expand our brand, if you will. We started doing this two guys and on a Skype feed. It sounded like we were using old Soviet equipment. And now it's a slick-looking show with a great producer in Phil Molinax, and you folks have been awfully appreciative of what we do, and we're going to keep doing it all year long. So with that in mind, we say goodbye till now. We'll see you next week.
One more thing.
Sure.
Do you think Jeremy Pruitt took Michael Penix's McDonald's bag back?
That was a
Penix is probably like an old school McDLT container with some quarters and then ones. And
it's hot on one side and it's cold on the other. I mean, how could this? It's science. How could this not work?
Dude's I'm going to Indiana.
Never mind. Bloomington looks good. See ya.
All right.
On that note, so long, everybody. We'll see you next time on JC and Morgan.